Okay. Thank you, Timsi. Hi, Renu. Hi, Anita.
Hi, Purbi.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Hi everybody.
Hello, and welcome once again. And this is our part 3 of the Relational Intelligence book reflection series, and hopefully we should be able to wrap up the balance portions of the book today. But thank you so much for taking the time on this Friday morning. Lovely weather, as we've been talking about it. Um, so let's dive in before so that we can focus on wrapping all of it today. So we'll be focusing on the compelling relator, the
Mhm.
conversational futurist, the likable hero, and the disproportionate investor today. And I I think today, Renu, I would love to, as we were chatting, and I would love to get started maybe with some reflections from you, since you've invested the time to go through the compelling relator and the conversational futurist. If that's
Uh,
okay.
no, no, not at all an issue. I can, no problem.
Sure.
So, what I feel is like if we are on this journey of a life coach, until and unless we are able to relate to the person and the person is able to relate to us, I think nothing can go further. So what I feel is that it is very, very important that we become such that the other person is able to share and be open to discuss anything that he or she wants to, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as some of the things exactly from the book, if I quote, so we need not to be irrelevant at all, and we should be such, as we say, compelling. So when I say compelling, that you should become so much engrossed, or you can say so much interesting for the people that they definitely share their stories with us.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you come across any leaders whom you identify as a compelling relator?
um, as of now, Purbi, I can't say anyone like that, but let me just be on this journey and let's explore. I think maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I I think as I got started with I would say in the last 7 years in my journey in my current organization. Now there was this leader where I wasn't very directly connected at to begin with. It was more like we would see him appear on different forums, join different training programs as a guest speaker and things like that. And
Mm,
then it when I would see him speak, and none of us, and he was new to the organization, a lot of us were in the same position as I was, where
mhm,
we were not very closely associated with him, or did not have a very I would say a very direct opportunity to interact because of his seniority.
mhm.
But there was always this element of something that in the vibe that he brought in, and the way he gave his speeches, gave like facilitated sessions where
Mhm.
people were literally compelled to be present and listening to what he was sharing.
Yeah. Mm.
And when I was reading the compelling relator myself, for me, I was identifying with this leader a lot because he just brought with him, and somewhere there was that element of energy
Energy
carrier too.
carrier. Yeah. Yeah. That is very essential. If you are on this, that has to be important component of this also. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and as the book talks about, ensuring that you're always relevant, you can be relevant only when, like, depending on whatever profession you are in, right? If you're reading, if you're updated about what's happening.
Yeah.
And it used to be so amazing that whenever you want to like strike a conversation with this leader, he would just be able to speak at such depth and such insightful things which came only from his reading habits. Voracious reader, and not just a reader, I think at one point when I really got an opportunity to starting to like work more closely with him and get to know him a little more directly, I discovered, like, and this is what I had learned from him. So I'm going to show you my book. Can you see all these stickies
Yeah,
popping out?
yeah. Hmm,
Um, he used to sit down with books,
hmm,
and every time he was reading a book, he was scribbling, and it was not necessarily taking a lot of lengthy notes, but he
hmm,
was scribbling primarily his insights and reflections. And like, his book was like a journal,
hmm.
not just a book.
Yeah. Hmm,
And that helped him imbibe the learning so well that when he was going to any forum, he was also able to like talk in depth, and that made him a very, very compelling relator. As a leader, people began to like really admire and felt compelled to listen to him.
hmm,
So that was the connection that I was kind of making when I was reading this.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Anita,
yeah.
anything you would like to add here? Okay, we will not disturb you. Feel free to jump in whenever you feel like contributing.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so conversational futurist. How does how have you taken the test, Renu?
No, I haven't as of now.
Okay,
No.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I think it's typically going to be a very interesting aspect of your relational intelligence assessment to see and discover for yourself how do you score on the conversational futurist. I
Hmm.
think it was an interesting thing for all of us in the cohort. but
Okay.
but what was your like reflection as you were reading through this?
Uh, I think Purbi, I would need a lot of understand means I need to read it again and again as of to understand what exactly and how to take the things in such a way that we are able to take your client to the future, like maybe what they will be having in future or abhi hum dekh sakte hain wo. That is really something very
Yeah,
tricky what I understood, because it needs a lot of practice. This is what I am feeling is it is not that easy to be like, okay, how would you read what is not in front of you and how will you take that person to the future. So I need to read it again and again to get an understanding, a deep understanding of this. This is what I felt about it. Compelling relator, energy carrier, or storyteller, wo collector, that was all okay, like I could get it easily, but isko I'm reading again and again in order to understand exactly. I don't know why. uh, mm, mm,
yeah, yeah. And this is a complex aspect of one's personality to even like understand and appreciate where we are. And as we were discussing this piece in our cohort, I remember one of the things that came out for us was, as part of this learning of becoming a coach and developing the art of asking those powerful, meaningful questions, that is where some of these questions can really help us get to being a more conversational futurist.
yes.
And and especially when we are focusing as part of the questions, I think it has this beautiful example, right, where there are these two friends that are talking of, I think, Emily and Kelly.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Hmm.
And as they are talking, and it was not just listening and responding to what the other person was sharing, but
Yeah,
also having the courage to ask some uncomfortable questions,
that is what. That is what.
and challenging. And as a coach, that is what we also need to develop as the art of
That
asking question as
very
well,
true. Very true. Very true. Yeah,
where we're not just taking things on the face value, but trying to read what's behind, whether
yeah.
it is their beliefs, their values,
Exactly.
any
Exactly.
apprehensions, fear.
Yeah.
Um and I think today when I was revising this, um for me what was really coming out is reflecting on a few recent conversations that I've been having with my teenage daughter. Sometimes it's like, they're trying to guard a lot of information that they're passing to parents at this age.
Yeah.
And every time it's like, do I take it at face value or do I dive a little deeper?
Yeah.
And it for me it was more like, okay, maybe I need to really wear this hat. And yes, Anita, laugh your heart out, but I can tell you I'm in a very difficult position having this conversation. And I wish, like, I was more of a natural in this conversational futurist to be able to bring out some of those hidden pieces.
May I share two things with
Yes,
regard to
yes.
conversational futurist? So I did a couple of trainings for a construction company where
Hmm.
the managers predominantly, and it's like a established thing, that the managers are predominantly a little toxic towards their teams.
Hmm.
In the sense, because there's so much of pressure, there's so much of vendor negotiations happening all the time, and the timeline is so stringent. Whenever something goes wrong, and they would just end up taking everything out without a second thought.
Hmm.
So the relationships overall were like bad would be like saying it in a nice way. So the
Hmm.
whole organization felt that they want to do something about it, and although they didn't word it that way, but their objective was to improve the relational intelligence. Now uh, I didn't realize that I was using conversational futurist at that time. But then like I actually asked them that, okay, what do you tend to focus on when things go wrong? And so they're like, what do you mean, what do we tend to focus on? We immediately ask, why did this happen? How the hell did you not do this? Blah 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 blah. And like literally like a tank bomb for like 30 minutes to a bunch of adults who have an average experience in the industry and in the company for over 2 decades. So then
Yeah.
immediately the thought that hit my mind was, okay, so as a coach, I'm sensing that it's problem focused versus outcome focused. So then I just asked them कि देखो ये हो गया है. So what are you trying to achieve by rehashing it at this point of time?
Yeah.
And it was like they were silent because they realized the sheer futility of draining their energy, increasing their blood pressure, making their whole team very negative, because the team would, with their body language, even on a Zoom screen, show that, okay, they really need a break. So then I was so thrilled because they themselves said that, okay, maybe the way we want to go about it is we will just say, ye ho gaya, ho gaya. Uh, let's all like literally put that aside. And okay, what can we do now so that the customer escalation is dealt with or it does not happen? And I felt like that was an example of them trying to operate from a future space. And the team members might not believe in the first go because they will think कि नहीं नहीं ये तो फिर से कुछ झाड़ेगा, this is a trick question. So but when they realize कि no, it might be worth telling them that yes, we are not letting this go, we'll come back and talk about it just so that we can avoid the situation in future. But
Hmm.
अभी हम जो चला गया है उस कल की बात नहीं करते हैं, आने वाले कल की बात करते हैं.
Hmm. Hmm.
You do it with like utmost respect. And all this it was such a beautiful moment because ये सब फिर उन्हीं के मुंह से आया कि yeah, they would like to try this next time. And धीरे धीरे वो shift हो सकता है where people will start trusting them a lot more when they have goofed up, rather than try to compound their mistakes by hiding it. So yeah, so I kind of felt like it may not like it may not be like a regular conversation that they're having, but this
Mm.
is a focused work conversation. But still, the fact that they're trying to bring life into it by focusing on tomorrow and what can be better rather than doing a post-mortem, because that investigation could happen later, or that investigation can happen through the process of discussing the solution, which is a component of future, uh,
Yeah, yeah.
rather
So
than jump up and down.
what would you say made you kind of look ahead and ask some of the questions that you asked, which which were not basically the points as discussion items on the table?
See, as a coach, I think the paradigm I remembered is outcome thinking versus problem thinking, or solution thinking versus problem thinking. So I'm like, actually, I didn't even ask too many questions. I only asked them, what what are you gaining out of it? I mean, like,
Hmm.
obviously आपको कुछ फायदा है तभी तो आप ये कर रहे हो. And they realized कि actually कोई फायदा नहीं है. And that was so funny because they were actually silent. I mean, there was such an uncomfortable silence. And I felt like so many of us tend to like ponder over the past, or have
Yeah,
conversations where we are also reminding people about the past,
yeah,
like even by saying something like पहली बार जब गड़बड़ किया था वैसे गड़बड़ होना नहीं चाहिए.
yeah, yeah,
To me, a very simple example of how you are not willing to look into the how one is not willing to look into the future.
yeah,
रहने
yeah.
दो ना, like kind of a thing. So I felt like conversational futurist, uh, and because they could ultimately realize that it is going to hugely impact the way their teams are going to relate to them, build that loyalty, because that's what they wanted. I mean, in fact, in that room there were people and their team members, and you could literally see the body language. They're tightening up. Some of them like,
Yeah,
oh my god,
yeah.
this is getting like a little scary. But then at the end of it all, when they looked at each other, I felt like there was a look of, okay, can we look at this when we next speak?
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
feel it's a very powerful. Like, I was in love with the storyteller vara thingy, but then when I experienced this, I felt like more than the story collector, actually, conversational futurist is also a very powerful way to build relatability.
Oh yes, oh yes. And I think as I have been reading this one, I have really been reflecting on what is the best way for us to really grow this in us.
Yeah.
Like how can you really see and hear what is not being said or displayed in front of you?
Hmm.
And I, while somewhere it feels like it it's an art, I mean there is absolutely a way also to develop this as a skill. And I, like, personally, I want to be really intentional about this, because I think this is where a lot of those deep conversations can happen with your coaches, right? Even as a leader, being able to like see what's coming ahead as part of the conversation can also give you a very strategic edge to where you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and like I think this question is really for both of you, Renu and Anita, is, do you feel like um, you have ever been in a place where you have either, like, before you even read or came across this term of conversational futurist, where you've been able to actually, as part of a conversation, and not necessarily a professional conversation, could have very well been a, personal conversation as well, where you've actually been able to like see where the conversation is going, and like salvage it before it just went in a direction which did not lead to anything productive?
Uh, yeah, Purvi, since I shared, I have been from a teaching background. So many such instances I had, because I was taking up class 11, 12, and even 9, 10th. So students at that age, they need someone. I think I was able to help, or I would say I was able to guide them by just applying this kind of a technique on only, what I would say.
Hmm.
And it was really helpful for some of the students, because when you're teaching, you know the child in and out. Because if it is for 9, 10, so we generally had like for 2 years or 3 years the same student, so you get to know a lot about the child also. And then anything happening in their life, and I was of the kind, like, I was approachable. I
Hmm.
honestly would say that I was
Hmm.
approachable as a teacher, and every student felt very comfortable sharing the things with me. So yes, many of the times it happened. I can't remember as of now any of them exactly, but yes, uh, being in that profession, that made me take such conversations further. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I, Anita, based on also what the example that you shared, I, I would encourage you, like all of us here, to actually just reflect and see what are some of the things that you feel you did differently, particularly in these conversations, which could really be something that you want to like be aware of so that you can practice it more often.
Yeah, we can. Yes. We can prepare, make a journal for this also. Like any every time we have any such conversation, definitely we can make notes for it, and we can apply that intentionally in other conversations also further. That would be great. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And like i I actually had a coaching conversation yesterday, and I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe you can help me figure out if there was a conversational futurist at all playing here. So this coachee was is absolutely new to my organization, and ours is a huge organization where anybody can get easily lost. And she has new in the sense, she has been in the organization for about 3 years, but essentially she has been changing roles every year. So pretty much every year, like this is just the third role that she has accepted in the within the organization. And somewhere she feels like where the conversation was really going is that, maybe I need some career coaching, and I feel like, I'm not in the best place, and I'm not being able to like identify what is the right thing for me to do in this organization. And there was something in her body language. We were on a video call, of course. There was something that was telling me that she was very, there's more that she wants to say, but because I am also an employee of the same organization, and she doesn't know me, I'm just coaching her. She wasn't sure whether she could like trust me with a lot of information and things like that. And then i I just paused a little bit to like give her that space and reassure her of the trust and confidentiality aspect of the coaching conversation that we were having. And following that, she continued to like speak about this, and then somewhere I felt she was like, still there was something else that was bothering her. And it just happened very naturally that I said, you know like, let's assume her name was Laurel. I was like, Laurel, is what are you exactly afraid of? And for a second I could see that she was like completely unsettled, and absolutely not expecting anything like this. And she was like, no, nothing. and and then she paused, and I paused and like just gave her a few moments to settle down. And she came back saying, You know what? I mean, I realized that since the time I joined this organization, I have really not had anybody I could confide in, where I could openly talk through my aspirations, what I'm liking about my role, what I'm not liking, where, where all of this is going. And typically in our organization, you have somebody as, you know your whom we call a career counselor, who you gets assigned to you, whom you typically work with. But there are projects where unfortunately the career counselor is also the boss. And in such scenarios, sometimes if you're not comfortable or the issue is really with the work that you're doing, you don't want to open up, because your career counselor is not another person, it's the same person with whom you're having a challenge. And she, just to avoid that, she has been changing roles. And now she has landed in a place and she's like, okay, 3 years in the organization and I don't know what I'm doing, and where I am. I don't know, do you feel like there was an element of conversational futurist here?
Yeah. Reason being that this was the only thing that she was not sharing openly with you, right? She was
Mm.
sharing, okay, I need to change and all that, but yes, this is where you could feel that what is the reason, why is she wanting to shift from one to another. So you just asked a very appropriate question to understand that what is the reason, and that only could further lead, okay, then what next? If you are afraid of this, then either we overcome that, okay, by doing something, or what further options are available that we can take up, so that we are easy and we are comfortable in whatever we are doing. So I think it was a very appropriate thing that you did.
Okay. Yeah, because I do have a few more conversations. Yes, Anita.
Um, I'm not sure the futurist part was there, because I felt like this allowed her very powerful reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And reflection is generally a factor of something that has already happened. So, like, I'm sorry, I hope it's okay to say this, but to me, I don't know if this was technically an example of a futurist conversation, because what might have made this question futurist would be to to get a different situation or to have a different outcome in the future in your work. What fear would you like to work on, or what do you think you could tackle to be in a better space?
Yes, and I would say those are places we are leading to,
Yes. Yeah,
Yes,
right?
this was the question that led
led
further.
to, yeah, I
Yes,
agree,
it led
absolutely.
to, yes.
Yes,
It is
yes,
a connector. I would say it is a connector. Definitely, it is taking you in that direction only. Obviously, like to
no
begin with,
doubt.
this was a correct question altogether. Yes.
Of
So
course, yes.
Anita, I was and I'm not 100% sure. I was
Purvi,
reflecting
you
on
understood
this.
where I'm coming from. You guessed
I
that.
get your point. Yes, I get your point. What I'm trying to kind of like, because as I have been reading
Mhm.
the conversational futurist, it's also about, you're able to really see where the conversation is going, or
Right.
something where you would want the conversation to go. And
Mhm.
as a conversational futurist, if you're able to gauge that,
Mhm.
you're able to salvage your discussion in that direction. So there was an element of that which I thought was there in this conversation. Absolutely, to your point, Anita, I think those future questions have not, we haven't come to that yet,
Sure, sure.
because this was like really just the first session, and more kind of getting to getting her to even share what really is the challenge,
Right.
rather than saying that I am lost and I don't know Like the challenge was not that she was struggling to find the right job. The challenge was she was struggling to find the right person she could trust in the organization to even discuss her aspirations.
Right. Right.
Right. So that's where we landed. And yes, there are going to be a lot of more future based conversations from here on. But
Yeah,
I,
would be. I think once we get to know, as you said, this leading was there, right? So you came to a point that you are able to find out that yes, she is afraid of something, right? Then from here we can take further the conversations to what exactly in future that she aspires for or what she's looking for. So this is how I think it will proceed. Don't you think so?
I mean, I'm thinking so. I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking so that and especially when I'm trying to draw a parallel to, let's say, the Emily Kelly example that's narrated here. I I could see that somewhere you have to start with by shifting that, here is, this is not the real problem. The problem seems to be something else. And being able to figure out that, where is this heading in terms of a discussion, and then trying to like tap onto some of those unsaid things, possibly making your coachee a little uncomfortable, but at the same time giving them that, trust and assurance that whatever you're sharing here is a safe space. So if that's what is your real feeling, then open up. Or if that's what is your real fear, then just let's talk about it so that we can solve for it. I don't know, I'm approaching this, but I think this particular one is the most complex one for
That
me
is
to
what I said,
comprehend.
Purvi, in the beginning. I'm reading it, rereading it, but yes, it is taking time to
Yeah.
absorb and to understand. Okay, how would you do it when it
Mhm.
comes to scenarios like coaching and all that? How would you do it? Like it's really very, very tactful to
Yeah.
take the things further.
Yeah, because it like somewhere, I think for me, the conversational futurist, I see somebody who is like really skillful
Mm.
and has practiced this so well. Like I see a lot of times, I see this in Jaya come out so strongly when she's coaching me. Like, her questions would be like totally something that I would not have expected.
Yeah, compelled to speak then, Anna. You
Yeah.
just give that what is not at all. You don't even think कि अच्छा ऐसा भी सवाल आएगा और आपको जवाब देना पड़ेगा like ऐसा.
Yes, yes. And I've told her also in my this thing that I I did not think about this at all. But somewhere we finally, as we went ahead with the conversation, I agreed with her that yes, this is probably what was really bothering me. It wasn't what I came to you with.
No, but
So
Purvi, I feel
hmm,
like that is a very relative thing because in our coaching session, you asked me a lot of futurist based questions, which
hmm,
I felt was very helpful to for me then backtrack and formulate a plan like in the present.
hmm, hmm.
So I felt like, yeah, you do that too. It's no, I'm just saying I truly feel you also do ask
Oh,
futurist
you're
questions.
referring to our coaching
Yeah,
session.
you and mine.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yours and
okay,
mine.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think as coaches, probably we all need to be able to see the future of the conversation, where this is going, and being able to try and do this. But it doesn't, it's not that straightforward. Like, for example, if we look at the next one, likable hero, I think this was like, okay, I mean, we know this.
Yeah,
And even as leaders, we somewhere we are, even without reading, we're probably able to identify what a likable hero could be.
yeah.
And okay, so with that, let's actually, conscious of time, so let's move on. And likable hero, I think, Renu, what you were sharing um around, as a teacher, being approachable and being that um, sounding board with your students. I think that's one of the key things of a likable hero. The first, I think it's
Approachable.
on, this is page 153.
153.
Yeah. It talks about the 5 signs of likability, which is approachability, stickiness, rapid trust formation, friendliness, and flexible optimism. Um, is there, I would want to hear, is there anything in particular that both of you feel about these 5 signs of likability that we should be focusing on?
Personally, I've struggled with stickiness, Purvi,
Mhm, mhm,
more because of a bad habit that I have had where I will just not connect with people. As in, it's
hmm,
not like I don't like people or anything. I have this huge thing about, like, if we meet in person and I would be completely, जैसे 100 जन्म का नाता है. But then, I would never call, never message, no DM pinging, nothing. I mean, it's in fact a miracle. These days, I appreciate that, of course. But I felt like I hugely was missing on the stickiness factor. Um, and I'm seeing the power of working on that a little bit, because that is what shows the consistent effort into maintaining a relationship. Um, does it make sense?
it does, but Anita, I would also want to give you a slightly different perspective that,
Sure, sure,
I have here, nothing that is right or wrong, but
sure.
consistency does not need to be necessarily consistent effort.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency could also be in the form of that, today you're really sweet to me.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow when we're meeting, it could be 10 years later, 2 years later,
Yeah.
you're not turning away your face.
Oh
you
no.
you're still the same. You're
Yeah, yeah, of
consistent
course.
in your,
Oh
the
yes.
way you come across. Like, and to give you a more negative example of this, there are people who today would be like really nice with you.
Hmm.
Okay, all goody goody, smiling, oh yaar tu to mera yaar hai, all of that, right? And probably पीछे कुछ और मतलब है, there is an intent behind that,
Hmm.
and वो मतलब निकल गया, तो भैया कल आपसे मिले तो हाय बाय भी नहीं.
Oh, okay, I know that. Right.
You do come across people in your organization, in your professional career, in your personal career, who have this in them,
Right.
right? They're
Right.
not consistent in their behavior towards you,
Hmm.
and that is what makes them so, and it makes you feel so bad, right? Sometimes you wouldn't
Okay.
even know, अरे boss,
क्या कर
कल
दिया
तो
मैंने?
मेरे घर पे डेली आके चाय पी रहा था, एंड आज रास्ते पे देख के हेलो भी नहीं बोला,
Hmm.
right? But for them, it wasn't an invested connection, it was not an invested relationship.
Right.
They were doing it probably because they had something, वो मतलब निकल गया, and अभी उनको फर्क नहीं पड़ता है,
अच्छा.
right? So
You-
consistency could also be in that form,
Right.
where
Right.
your authenticity and your honesty to a relationship is consistent. And if for any reason that is changing, then at least the other person knows why it's changing. Like कि boss, तुम्हारा मेरा झगड़ा हो गया, एंड सो
Hmm.
मैं अगली बार भी तुम्हें देख के स्माइल नहीं करूंगी, मैं शायद गुस्सा करूंगी. But
Uh,
not keeping the other person completely in dark about, you know
no, 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 no. Yeah.
why something has changed in your behavior. Is it because "Acha, yesterday I was your peer, now I'm promoted"? Okay,
Uh,
so I don't care, man. You're like, you're still there and I am up here. Like, there are a lot of people who behave like that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of difference, because then it's about the relationship that they have as human beings, which is lost.
Yeah.
Because this hierarchy is with respect to one organization. Tomorrow you go to another organization, boss, that other guy might get hired as your boss.
Yeah. even if he doesn't, it's just not the right thing to do. I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, it's immaterial to like get caught up in these things, because you don't respect individuals just because of their hierarchy, right? You respect individual for their worth, what's in them.
right.
And if you're not like you if you're not honest to that
Hmm.
worth, then basically what you're doing is superficial, and that's where the stickiness will not be there,
Right.
right?
Right. That's helpful. That's a very, very different perspective. Yeah. That's, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and so let's see. I think each aspect of this likability is something that can be explored in many ways. Like, for example, your rapid trust formation. A
Hmm.
lot of times in the corporate world, we've heard of this trust equation, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you're dealing with new people, new stakeholders, how soon are you building trust?
Hmm.
Now, trust is never gets built overnight.
Hmm.
But when we say rapid trust formation, what what is it that actually even positions you or helps you, sets you up for that trust to start even forming, forget building,
Hmm.
right? Is where how you are really bringing yourself as an individual to that conversation, and people can sense it, right? No matter how dumb I am, but if I'm like continuously talking to you, I can get a sense of how honest you are in that conversation and how invested you are in that conversation versus, if you're doing something that is very, very superficial. It it does reflect in some form or the other.
Yeah. May I ask a question with regards to trust? It may not be
Yeah.
directly related to RI though. See, I've always believed that I'd rather trust,
Hmm.
and I just wanted your thoughts about it based on your experiences. What do you think? I mean, like, and it's not a trick question. I'm genuinely wanting to know because I have been criticized or I've generally been told sometimes that even something as simple as सबसे हमेशा मुस्कुरा के बात करने की क्या जरूरत है? Everybody is not like, like people might misunderstand it, people might take it the other way, they might cheat you, or they might do something which is not savory. But very strangely, I somehow never can come to terms with that because I feel like being the most evolved species on the planet, आप ट्रस्ट नहीं करोगे तो और क्या करोगे? हाँ, धोखा मिल सकता है. I mean, like, मिलेगा मिलेगा, and then you learn, and then but then you again trust. And I know it sounds pathetic, but
No,
yeah,
no,
I'd
no.
rather trust.
Look, I would say, you know, and I'm glad you asked this question because this feels like a perfect segue to the next one, which is the disproportionate investor.
Hmm.
And for me, there's also this element of, I think it was in that 5 signs of likability, right? Flexible optimism. When you're trusting, there is an element of optimism that you have
Yeah,
because of which you trust, right?
right, right.
But that optimism has to be flexible. If you're very hard coded to say that, I'm blindly going to trust everybody
Hmm. Hmm.
and trust to an extent that I confide in them, like go over and beyond in confiding things with
Hmm.
them,
Yeah,
that's where maybe you want to draw a line,
of course, of course.
because you do want to also keep in mind that disproportionate investor,
Hmm. Hmm.
because they're like the disproportionate investor here talks about, right? That there are people who are consumers and there are people who are givers.
Hmm.
You don't want to invest constantly in people who are only consumers, who will only take from you but not give back, and not giving back to you but giving back to the world or anyone for that matter, right? That's not a wise investment. So you definitely start by giving, like I always put it saying, as human beings, if you don't know somebody, give them the benefit of doubt and start with trust, because then at least you are optimistic in your approach and starting a relationship on a positive note. But that is where maybe we also need to like have our guards up to figure out and really assess the other person, especially if somebody is like completely unknown to us, to see, is this somebody worth investing in, or is this person purely here for some selfish interest, and there is nothing that either I get in return or the world gets in return. So for example, to like, I think a lot of times I have seen people reach out. So I lead a women's forum at work, just build speaking from my experience, and there are lots of women with lots of issues that reach out, and I have different connects with them. Some I have a long-term coaching relationship with them. Some of them are like more one-off scenarios and things like that. And I have noticed there are a couple of them who did not come to me because they had an authentic problem. And I realized it much later. I started with that level of trust because I was here with all my right intent. I have volunteered to be a women's coach. And, there are a certain number of things that I have signed up for as part of this, where let's say if you're a new mom, you're struggling something at work, there is a gender equality issue at work, whatever, we're talking about some of these. But there were a few of them that over a period of time, I realized that they were here because not because they had a genuine problem, because they saw me as somebody who was influential in the position that I was, and I could help them navigate in something which was not at all the intent of this relationship, right? And that's when I wouldn't say my trust was broken, but I think my guards went up, and I started, investing less in them and more in people that truly needed the guidance and the coaching.
Yeah.
Right. I would say, I think it's all this a very, very very, very delicate game that you play with trust every single day, right? There is no harm in trusting people and getting started, but like I have heard this too, बहुत जल्दी सब पे विश्वास कर लेती हो.
But okay, may I ask you something? I'm so sorry, but this is like, may I just one question?
Yeah.
So like, let's say these few people who kind of saw you as like a stepping stone, would your trust have been intact if they were to have had the courage to tell you that, hey, I know that you're running this initiative with a very different purpose, but I also see you as someone who's already in an aspirational post, and I'd like to get in a similar post. So while I don't want to use you for this, can I count on you for giving me feedback or guiding me even when I'm not reaching out?
Yeah, why not? Because then they are being honest about the real intent, right? And just if they knew me, they would have realized that they didn't need to come with this veil and mask. I would have anyways, given them time.
Right.
So
because then you would have shown up as a more sharper person suited to their needs than go through the unnecessary
it wasn't required. It wasn't required. And honestly, I confronted one of them. The other person I yet haven't confronted, because I am challenging in indirect ways to see if this person has the guts to come up and say the truth.
Right.
Because it's, the level that she is in the organization, the maturity that she has, I expect her to own this up at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Renu, how does this discussion resonate for, even if you haven't read through these portions,
No, this trust formation was again, yes. I also need to learn a lot from this as you are sharing your experiences, because maybe I have not experienced this thing as of now till date, but even I am on the same boat as Anita said, as you said. सब पे विश्वास कर लेना है बस, ठीक है, जैसा खुद हो वैसे ही लगता है तुम्हें सब है ना? तो कोई बात नहीं, वी आर लाइक दैट ओनली, एंड ठीक है, एक्सपीरियंसेस से सीखना होगा, डेफिनेटली होगा, बट यस, एज यू सेड, आपका एक्सपीरियंस ऐसा रहा, तो वी नीड टू डेफिनेटली पुट आवर गार्ड्स आप, वो तो बहुत अच्छा वो है समझना है। सो यस, वही चीज है जो नया मुझे लगा है कि यस, हम लोगों को वी शुड बी वेरी केयरफुल, राइट, कि कौन किस इंटेंट से और क्या आपके साथ में वो करने वाला है, तो बट वो सेंस कर लेते हैं पूर्वी, डू यू थिंक
हाँ
सो?
हाँ, यस
सेंस हो
यस
जाता है वो,
यस,
आपको पता लग जाता है, ऐसा नहीं है कि ये चीजें वाइब्स हैं, व्हाट आई बिलीव इन, यू
टोटली
गेट टू नो।
टोटली,
ठीक है, तो ट्रस्ट करो, डेफिनेटली करो, बिकॉज उसके बिना तो वी कैन नॉट गो हेड, वो तो
या
करना ही है, दैट वी
या
हैव टू।
या।
So I also in the same this thing. Yeah.
So as from if you were to look at how this focuses on the disproportionate investor as a leader, as a coach, it has this very interesting few catch lines. Like for example, on page 180, it talks about it has this statement that says, if we want to become more relationally intelligent, we must minimize our investment in consumers and maximize our investment in investors.
Yeah.
Right? And who are these investors? People who invest in themselves and other people for growth. They are not just here to like suck on what is being given to them and just consume, but they are also interested in giving back and growing, and that's where the growth culture comes in. Right? So and then there was this on this thing, page 181, it says, the more we minimize our investment in takers, the freer we will be to maximize our investment in givers.
Mm.
Right? For example, there was this little example that had come up in our cohort, that when a lot of times, I think somebody said, I can never say no. Right? So कभी कभी मन नहीं होता है, but friends ने बुलाया तो मैंने I just went along, until somebody brought it to his attention that what you really wanted to do is spend that time with your wife and son. Right? So when you could not say no to your friends where you actually had no interest in spending time, you ended up saying no to your wife and son where you wanted to spend that time. So time is finite that you have in a day, and so how you utilize the investment of that time is a very important thing as a leader, as an individual, as well. Right? If we are investing time in somewhere else, we are taking that time from someone else's time.
Yes.
मैं ज़्यादा काम कर रही हूँ, तो I'm taking time from my family.
Yes.
So it's like that. It's so being able to strike that balance and truly investing where it's required, rather than mindlessly keep doing and keep giving. So I think for me that was a good one to like connect the dots with the whole trust piece that Anita brought up, and even the aspect of the conversational futurist, where exactly are you investing your time, would also give you somewhere the insight to be able to gauge and develop that art, is what I thought.
Yeah.
As I was reading this, that maybe that's the natural process of growing into a more relationally intelligent leader.
True.
So yeah, I think, well, I know we are at time, and I think we have pretty much covered the whole book here. But as you guys go through your journey with the book, if there are any further questions that emerge, I think we can continue to keep in touch over a
Yeah.
chat and keep exchanging ideas.
Sure.
Exactly. Sure.
Okay, hope this was helpful.
Yeah, Purbi. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Reem.
Thank you, Purbi.
Sure. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye,
Okay,
Hema.
Bye
thank
bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Timsy. We can go ahead and stop the recording.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care.
Okay, bye.